Ahoy, Minnetonka. I'm David Law, Superintendent of the Minnetonka Public Schools, and thank you for joining us for our third episode of Ahoy, Minnetonka. I'm here with Minnetonka High School Principal Jeff Erickson. I've asked Jeff to share about how he has seen Minnetonka High School evolve with innovation and experiential learning to become the amazing program it is today, a school of opportunity. Jeff, tell us about your background coming to Minnetonka High School.
Well, thanks for having me on the program. My name is Jeff Erickson, the principal. This is my 10th year as principal of Minnetonka High School. I started in 1993 as a Spanish teacher and taught for 14 years, and then was a dean here, and then assistant principal for 5 years. I was away for 1 year, and then came back to be the principal of Minnetonka High School.
So from 1993 till now, you've seen a lot of programmatic changes and some themes and shifts. What were some of the courses that you were teaching at that point in time, and how is that program, just what you taught, how has that developed over time?
Yeah, that immersion has been one of the most powerful influences in language, because that development of starting at kindergarten is how you really get the language figured out and having that longevity with it. So I taught at the time the highest level Spanish and the beginning level Spanish, and so students that were taking what was called 4X, and I have some students in the building whose parents I had in that class, or are now kids in the school, which is pretty cool. But that would be equivalent to maybe ninth grade, what we're doing now. And that would be not as a rigorous version of that class. So that was similar to AP, which we now have for ninth graders in the immersion program. So we still have the regular track for students who want to start at the high school, but it is just night and day difference. When I walk into a class of ninth graders and listen to their Spanish and their accent, I mean, it's amazing what they're able to do and their comfort with it. So that's been really cool to see that change in what they're able to do in their proficiency levels.
One of the things about innovating and growing and change is we didn't go from no immersion to immersion seniors in a year. There must have been a yearly adjustment as students came through becoming more and more proficient. Talk about that experience of working through the change just in that, because we're going to later talk about other programs you're growing with. Talk about how does the high school respond to the in-process change of innovation?
Well, I think related to immersion, it was literally what will be that ninth grade class? Where will they be in eighth grade? And we had a goal that they would be able to take AP in ninth grade. So to earn college credit in ninth grade for what they're doing. So that was every year adding a process. We figured out what course would that be in ninth grade. We also had the goal of being able to take 2 hours a day in language. So we created civics and human geography in Spanish and Chinese for ninth graders. So that concept, I remember years ago introducing to families, was something totally different. What will that look like? Will they be ready for it? And students have done incredibly well in ninth grade, having up to 2 hours a day of immersion and finding the staffing. So I was fortunate as a dean, when I was working on my principal internship hours, to work with elementary principals to interview elementary world language teachers and Spanish teachers and Chinese teachers to see what that was like. So finding high quality people was our first goal, and then developing courses, because the instructors had to have a high level of proficiency and either native or near native. So that's been incredible to watch, and now it's just how we do business. It's just this is what I want to take, and the levels of language, we have students who are taking IB, Spanish and Chinese, equivalent to those in Madrid or Beijing, and they're performing incredibly well.
How does Minnetonka has between 30 and 40% of their students that are bilingual, essentially, or working towards being bilingual. How does that impact the climate at a school?
Well, you have a good chunk of your students who really value and have studied a language for a long period of time. And not only the language, but the culture that goes along with it. So they really have a global perspective, a global understanding. And I don't know if they always realize the tremendous power they have of knowing another language and knowing it really well so they can communicate it. And so having such a volume of students involved in the programming allows us to offer all kinds of classes. And so typically you're not going to have a district with every elementary school that option. So when they get to the high school, they're taking film, they're taking composition. We have a whole list of courses. So their perspective, the travel that we have lots of different travel experiences for students. So they really value the idea of learning from another culture. And when you know the language of that culture, it even accelerates that connection.
Yeah, I know that the state, probably within the last 5 years, has adopted this bilingual seal for your diploma. I have to think in Minnetonka, we have hundreds of students that might apply for that.
We have a large number of students that are earning their bilingual seal. And then two, what I think the benefit is, they're leaving into their post-secondary with a high level of proficiency.
Yeah.
And we've had a strong world language program for as long as I've been here with amazing results, but when they leave us, they're just so much more prepared. I mean, they're getting to university and colleges ready to test out of their language requirement. They'll have it as a minor, and so they have a gift of that ability to communicate in another language, and so at a high level of proficiency. I'm just, like I said, I'm blown away by what they can do, their confidence in the language, and it's really an important value of our school.
So you were a dean as the district was innovating high school and really redefining what the high school experience was. What were some of the programs that were coming on board during your time before you were principal?
So I think one of the significant changes, every decade it really has felt like there's been a new opportunity, new changes. When I was a dean, it was the IB program. So in my final year teaching, I taught IB, and I think at that time I may have had 3 or 4 students embedded within my class who were working the IB program. And at that time, people were saying, well, can you have AP and IB? And can you have both in the same school? Well, kids, and it's worked beautifully. We have kids that want the diploma program. So the IB program, and then really in the past 10 to 12 years is where we have continually developed new programs and new opportunities for students, with that idea of experiential learning being at the center, and saying what if, and how might we do that. Technology as well. About 11 years ago, we started with the iPad, and that was funny at the time of students saying, boy, we need a keyboard. We can't operate just with the iPad, and we bought all these keyboards, and now kids look at it and say, why would I use a keyboard? And it's all natural of how they use it. So technology, our goal was, can it just be the tool, not the shiny object? Can kids just use it as a tool? They know this is their learning tool, and there's no excitement around it. It's just, this is a tool that I use. So we've been able to use that. But I would say just this idea of what if we did, Vantage or all the different programs we have, and then we kind of figured out how you do it. How do you create these opportunities? And I think the key to innovation with these programs, can we replicate them? And do we know what works? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, what works is kids are engaged, they're learning, and they're having fun.
Well, I want to go back to the IB program that you developed, or that you were part of the development process, because just this week, yesterday, we had this IB celebration event. For the community members who don't know what it takes to earn an IB diploma, and how does that advantage students moving forward, can you talk a little bit about that process?
So we have students during their junior and senior year that can either take an IB International Baccalaureate class as a separate class, or they can take it part of the diploma program. So we recently honored all of our diploma students. And that's a significant commitment. You're taking 2 years of courses, you're taking it as a cohort model. There's a theory of knowledge course that they take. They also do community service hours. There's a community action service hours that they'll have to complete. They write a 4,000 word extended essay. So this fall we had a chance for them to present their essays. Their topics are just crazy in the sense of just amazing things that they're thinking about. And it really focuses on critical thinking, collaboration, and some of the core values of IB. The benefit when they talk about their experiences, they are so confident in their writing, in their research, in their curiosity and creativity. So it's all intertwined in a very coherent program that really allows students to explore their interests, and is kind of the opposite of a multiple choice test. It's really more holistic, but their writing and communication preparation, their critical thinking, they will talk about that when they leave, when they go off to post-secondary. They are more than prepared in those specific areas. And two, we're a large high school, but the fact, our goal is how do you make a big school small, and we do that through programs and opportunities. So students build a community within certain programs.
Parents ask this sometimes, is there an advantage of AP versus IB? Is it really student preference? Does one of those give students a big advantage in a post-secondary institution? How would you answer that question for a parent coming in as a 9th grader?
Yeah, sometimes students or parents and students can look at our course guide and say, oh my gosh, there are so many opportunities, how do I choose? And so every year they sit down and figure, what do they want to take? What are their options? The most important thing I say is choose what you're going to enjoy and you're going to find your passion in. So there are so many different classes I have with AP and IB. There's no really wrong answer from my perspective. The only wrong answer is if you're just doing what your friend is doing. Do what you want to do. The preparation is there and what you put into it. And they really benefit from that college level courses. Students that leave us after taking a lot of different classes, they'll just be better prepared when they're going to go off to school, and they also can earn college credit as well with that experience. So I really think I say to students, you can't go wrong, but just figure out what you want in the courses, and that's why even the IB program you could select like language and literature. That's a IB Lang Lit is a really popular class. It's a little more contemporary in the literature that they look at, and students want to take that, and great, find your passion within that.
You mentioned just the continued reinvention of Minnetonka High School. Last week I had the benefit of attending Tonka Research and their culminating event. When did that come on board, and what was the background for that? What drove this premier research facility and program for students, and what have been some of your highlights from it?
Yeah, that has been all these projects that for me what brings joy is just creating amazing opportunities for students and also having an incredible staff. I mean, all these programs happen because we have teachers who are really passionate about their own learning because they want to improve student learning. And so we had a group of science teachers who said we needed to have an opportunity for students to do their own research. So it was a 2-year process that we went out to visit. We went out to visit a school out east to learn about that. We actually visited with some professors at Georgetown University, and they shared with us that students need to work collaboratively. They need to work for an outside partner, a project partner, and they need mentors. And so we kind of looked at that idea of how can they find their passion by doing real-world research. And then space needed to be part of that. So the difference with this lab is that they're doing labs that last all year. And so it's not like a traditional science class we think about. We go in, we do the lab, we set it up, we take it down, we go home. If you were to walk by the research lab, you're going to see things going all the time. I mean, we had a student last year had a huge apparatus for growing moss all year, and the project never ended, obviously until he graduated. But it was just, that was his passion. And so we facilitated that learning through that process. And students learn, like sometimes their research doesn't pan out. And so even grading within this program is different. It's not the product, it's the process that they use. I mean, I go to the science fair and I frankly many times don't understand what they're talking about because they're at a level that's beyond my capacity. But they're excited, and they are, and again, engagement happens when they have choice in what they're doing and they choose their own project. And so they had the kickoff, they had the big event, the symposium, which is just mind-blowing what they're doing. And then they had an event with our new students for next year, kind of a welcome event last week, so they know what to be thinking about over the summer. But that program was really led by some amazing teachers that helped facilitate it. So if you're teaching that class, you've got a group of students, and it's not like you have one lesson. You have 15 to 20 lessons that are going on every hour because the students are designing that. And then when they need help, they have mentors they'll reach out to a professor at Harvard or University of Minnesota, and they help them with their research. And when they leave us, and many of those students who continue with research, I mean, they're not doing at college what they're doing here for several years. So I always say sometimes the roadblock for our students isn't here, is when they leave here, they're not going to be doing the same level of work that they're doing here.
Yeah, I had the benefit of visiting with a student who was designing better gloves for snowboarders, and 2 parts. One was the friction on the outside that tears up the gloves, and the other is the material that freezes on the inside. And it was the classic example of he created this comprehensive or this very complex machine to provide friction for the gloves that he didn't complete. So he had to abandon that part of his process. But I said, so what's next? And he said, I'm going to come back and finish that. Whether or not I do this research, I'm just fascinated by it. And it was fun to see them with that passion. Moving forward, because people talk about Minnetonka and they talk about Vantage, and now Vantage and Momentum, most people might not hear experiential learning and know what that means. Right. So we've talked that this program started with about 40 students in a single strand of a class out here in the forum. Right. Tell me, what is a Vantage? What's experiential learning, and what are we offering there?
So the experiential learning is our hope for every student is that you have the chance to go in depth and learn a particular topic and then apply it in a real world setting. So the best way to explain it is just to give an example that we had a group of students in business analytics. So that's what we call a strand. It's a 2-hour class taught by a math teacher because it's AP Stats is a class, and then an IB business class. So 2 teachers teach collaboratively in an interdisciplinary way. So students learn the content, then they apply it. And we talk about engagement and kids just getting excited about their learning is when they're working and applying it. And so they're applying it, like one of the groups worked for Best Buy. So Best Buy gave them all kinds of data and information with a project and a problem they had to solve. And then I got to witness their presentation, and they presented to high-level executives at Best Buy and did all the research and said, here's what our recommendation is that you do, and whatever that topic is. So they're doing all the math, and they're learning all the concepts, but they know what they're doing is they're doing it for a real client. Well, that changes your level of concern and engagement. You're not going to show up late to a project meeting with the CEO of a particular company and say, hey, I'm not ready. So that's where they get excited about it. And so to watch that enthusiasm is pretty remarkable. So we figured out that experiential learning is taking what you know, applying it in a real world setting. And then our community has been spectacular to be part of this and say, we've got a small business and we want to have some student voice, and here's our project. And so they get a project charter, and they have deliverables they need to have, but they're pretty excited about what they're able to do. So it's application, it's engagement, and so that started with Vantage, with one strand, and now we're up to 11 next year. We're adding international relations, and so and we know how to do it. And they're either 2 or 3 hour classes, and it's just application and it's engagement. That's spread into momentum. Research is similar. They're taking what they're learning and applying it in a real world setting, and so we just know how to make students find some real life application of what they're learning.
I mentored a student in public policy, and I was fascinated. He worked on Minneapolis parks and their policy towards how to address homeless encampments with humanity and a humane approach to that. And I watched him progress through the year, and at the end of the year he said, I'm really interested, I'd like to connect with a local elected official. So I connected him with 2 separate elected officials, one at the national level and one locally, both who got back to me right away and said, oh, you got a Vantage student with public policy, I'd like to meet him. I was impressed that they were familiar with it, but also that this is a student who took our experience and said, I want to do some more of this over the summer. Mm-hmm. We don't hear that a lot from students saying, I wish I could do more of what I did during the school year all summer long. Now, there is a shift and a focus on the trades, and one of the things as a fairly new person in the system to see this impressive trades facility and a new one coming over on County Road 101. Tell me about that background of the trades version of Momentum, or Vantage, that is Momentum.
So we did quite a bit of research and focus groups to figure out, what are students wanting to do in the area of trades. And so student voice is really critical in what we do. I mean, students share their voice when they register because they, what happens is what they register for. Yeah. So we've got to be responsive to make sure we're offering things kids want and value. And then making sure that whatever they do sign up for is an amazing experience. So students said to us, we want more. And I just always think the interesting story that they told us, the students did, if you want to call this, or if you want to just redo what you're doing with just a different title or just dress it up a little bit, just call it Minnetonka Applied Trades. Or Momentum was the other name, which would be more aspirational. And so we went with Momentum because we don't necessarily know where it's going to go. Vantage 10 years ago didn't really mean anything. Now it really means Applied Professional Studies. And so now students will see within Momentum, again, they're applying what they know. And so they said they wanted automotive, and that was a critical area. And we also developed a home renovation physics class. So it's a 2 hour class. We have a home renovation math class. And so if you were to walk over to the Momentum building, you'd see their finished sheds that they did for the physics part, or a behemoth ice castle with a shower, toilet, and kitchenette that they're finishing for the math class. So they're applying their content knowledge. But it really is being responsive to the trades and recognizing that a 4-year college isn't for everybody. And the most important thing is students find something they like. And I always remember the board meeting that they approved the building, when the board members commented as, we want a place for every student in our school, and a program for every student. So that is our focus, every student finding something they enjoy and want to excel at. So, last year in mid-year, we added Automotive 1, and we ran a semester of that. That's when the facility opened. Now we have other levels of automotive, and then a new class next year with economics in automotive. And so those continue to grow, and students are able to, If you want to take automotive 1, I wish I would have had that opportunity to learn the basics of a car. Or if you want higher level. So the classes are really interesting. You have all kinds of students within the class, all with different purposes. And I think as the strongest statement from the district is we work for opportunities for all students and are really responsive to that. And whatever students do beyond high school, as long as it's what they want to do, it's the right choice. And two, we've had trade panels where kids learn about opportunities. There are tons of jobs and opportunities and well-paying positions. And so a four-year college isn't for everyone, and we want to really value that by what we offer to students. So that has been one of the more rewarding projects because I feel like we're finding a place for all students and to excel, and they're really passionate about it. And again, the community, we get just great support from the community. Businesses want to know what we're doing, and that has kind of opened the mystery of what's going on in education because the community's in it. They're seeing our students, they're mentoring our students, and they're saying, I want to hire the student when they go. So the trades has been a great addition, and it continues to grow. And that momentum name will continue to be defined over time, just like Vantage has been.
It's been exciting for me just to meet with those students. We had the visioning day for how to continue to expand momentum. I mean, I'm impressed. You referenced student voice. It really is. You can see students sitting at the table with you, and they get to walk away and tell their friends, I was part of that. I'm going to take a different approach to something. We had the chance to have a board meeting where you had students celebrate disability studies. I don't think anyone in the state or most of the community don't have any idea about how innovative that program is. Where did that come from? I mean, innovation in a way to build inclusiveness in our system. Tell me about that.
Well, I think some of the most important work I do as principal is the who, hiring amazing people. So we hired a new special education teacher who had a passion for disability studies. He said, what if I created this course? So he went through the course proposal process and developed a disability studies course. And we started this year and launched it. And there was great student interest and really going in depth to understanding all disabilities, the impact of the law, and really help create an inclusive environment within the classroom. And then we've been sharing that with our broader community to say, here's a great course. And I think the teacher's just been thrilled because this course doesn't exist many places, and there are disability studies courses you can do at the university level, and it's helped students find a connection and a learning opportunity, and a part of our goal of helping students feel connected and belonging in the building, and that happens through relationships and connections. But if people haven't watched the board meeting, you go online and look for the link to hear the students share the impact of that class, and this is just year one.
Right.
And so, but you talk about innovation, it's just this idea, what if, and what we try to support with teachers and others is, what if we created this class? And there are not a lot of roadblocks to change, and it's been a great opportunity for kids.
I just want to give a shout out. I've been an amazing student in that program at the Culture Fair. Then she came and presented at the board meeting, and I saw her at the state bowling tournament, and she was a student who said, I struggled sometimes socially, and I was just so impressed with how she wasn't struggling. She did better interacting. We've got graduation right around the corner. What do you look forward to wrapping up the school year? What about that event is special to you?
Well, I think the joy I have in this position is I get to see kids over 4 years.
Yeah.
And so I remember them as ninth graders, and now to see them as seniors. And that's the best part of my job is connecting with kids. And so we're getting ready for them. Today was our last day. The day we were filming this episode was our last day in the building. And you can see the emotion in their eyes, honestly, and I see it every year of just like their time is ending here. And so next week they'll have community service for 2 days, and then we're at US Bank. And as you'll see, for your first graduation, we'll be in front of the students, they'll be coming in. And it's just amazing to see them all be there, the community. There's a part you'll enjoy before the ceremony. We have about an hour and a half of kind of social time on the field. And so kids get to see everybody, say goodbye. That's as equally as exciting as the actual ceremony, but it's a great time for them to come together. And they're really that student voice. We have student MCs. So you and I each give a speech, but it's student-led. We have a student speaker, staff speaker, but up until the end, we really want student voice to be what we do, and it's a special event.
I'm really excited for that. Thank you very much for taking time to visit and share just how the building has grown, how the community has grown, and the connection. I have seen a lot of your passion for connecting with kids and for programs. Thank you for joining us in the community, and we'll see you around.